Hi, Gonky.
Hello, mover.
Enough intro. Let's get to the topics.
Let's get. There's nothing to talk about.
There's nothing going on in the world today.
No.
Oh boy.
Before we
our marathon show, we will be here for the next 24 hours as we discuss everything that's gone on since the last time we talked at you.
It's only been a week.
What a week it's been.
What a week it's been. That's right, man.
I'm running out of tabs over here.
Yeah, I told Mover. He's like, oh yeah, don't forget this. Don't forget that. I'm like,
But it's because I'm plugged in to the Matrix. And everybody tags me on everything. So I know everything that happens as it happens. I'm pretty much a command center of intel.
I can see that. I mean, because then you forward it to me. I'm like, how the heck? It's like, this is happening.
I find out things as they happen.
Yeah.
Which sometimes that's better or worse. How are you, by the way?
I'm good. I've, no more restaurant ambiance in the background.
Oh, yeah. It's a nice shirt.
We've got you. That's why I thought since today was a working day, I dress up a little bit. Yeah, back in
You're
Florida.
not in your airline pilot uniform though, so how's anybody going to take you seriously?
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Just start wearing flight suits, dude.
Should I just wear my flight?
You should start wearing flight suits. Don't mention me, please.
I'll dig out my old blue diamond.
Can I Manchester?
No, you're an employee.
Okay.
You're going to fire you. If you
I think that calls for a Manchester.
We'll send you straight to HR.
Doug, how about you? Yeah, Doug can wear a.
I am wearing my flight uniform.
There you go. Now your
flight suit.
Your credibility has doubled.
It was uncertain.
It was uncertain. Mover, how have you been, sir?
Oh, dude, I don't want to talk about it. It's been a rough week, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Don't make me relive it. So, the important thing is that the horrors persist, but so do I. I made it Monday, and I'm here. So, and I'm personally, I'm on the upswing. Now, there's some other stuff that's not going great, but physically, we're trending in the right direction, I think.
Good.
So, physically, okay.
Good.
Other stuff, maybe not. So let's just say I'm happy to be here, Gonky.
Yeah.
With you today.
Yeah, me too. It feels like there should be three of us, but
yeah. So there's the beef again.
Yeah. No.
We announced him before we knew it would be 100 topics. Once we figured out it would be 100 topics. Can you imagine, dude? We never get out of here.
It'd all be quality. It'd be 100% quality, but we just don't have time for that kind of quality.
Speaking of quality, I've seen the little your connections bouncing. So if my internet goes stupid, thank you, Charter Spectrum. They've had techs out at least 5 times. They say they fixed it. I've got the fastest thing that they allow legally in my neighborhood, and I'm still having issues. So
you've been clear, man.
There's a plug for that. So just in case anybody's wondering why Mover starts to get pixelated.
Well, if you drop out, we'll just do 30 tabs by ourselves.
Yeah. Well, quick. We talked about that in the pre-show. It's like we'll do yo-yo ops.
Yeah. I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta tap out.
All right, so let's start on the first one. And I hate to. Well, let's get to the chats first before we get too far. Wicked Spider Black says, "Hi everybody, Wombat. Where's the beef?" I said something about Mondays and Wombat. I don't know.
Something came up. Man.
Kate says we have the best possible team to analyze insanity.
Ooh.
Thomas says Gonky, where's Wombat? The coloring book. What's that mean? Oh, the name of your next coloring book. I like it.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Let's get into this.
Do it.
The news has been
crazy.
Out of control.
I don't
like. First thing, I personally want to address something from my other channel. I made a community post. Last week, Air India 787 crashed shortly after takeoff, which we are going to go through here in a respectful, non-speculative manner, just talking about some things. I am a 787 pilot. I made a video less than 12 hours after it happened, and I regret that. excuses be damned, whether, post-surgery, drugs, whatever, it was a bad decision. And I went down the stupid rabbit hole that happens when you jump on something that's just happened, which is misinformation, right? There was one part that was, they did an intersection departure, which we'll talk about here in a second. There was another where they allegedly took off with no flaps. And I'm like, well, they'll have to, and I didn't make any judgments about it, but it was questions that I, having flown this aircraft, would know is unrealistic. And I'm going to talk about as we go, kind of why these things are unlikely in an aircraft like that, because I've flown it. I've flown the 78-8 and the -9, and I think it's a great airplane. I'm not a big fan of airline flying compared to fighter flying, but the 787 is a joy to fly. Like if I have to go fly an airliner somewhere, that's the airplane that I just enjoy the flying part, the takeoff, the landing, the pattern stuff, emergencies, going to the sim. It is a good airplane that I think is easy to fly, and that's what makes it fun. So with that, Gonky, do you want to kick this off, or do you want me to keep going?
Well, I just, before you start talking about a couple assumptions is, the goal is obviously to eventually let the professionals figure this out so it's never repeated, right? So, and then also kind of like we talked about, we were talking offline, man, everything we talk about, the assumption is at this point, since there's really not a lot of evidence out there, and they haven't had a chance to look at the flight data recorder, copy voice recorder. All we have is a video and some radio transmissions and what the one survivor heard, basically. So, we're just going to assume, an up airplane, right? So an airplane that's in compliance with, all the MELs, whatever safe to fly 787 is, and the crew is, properly trained, rested, and can operate the airplane safely. So I mean, those are the two assumptions at this point, because we just don't know, right?
Yeah, you got to give people the benefit of the doubt. But
Right.
What I will say, one of the things I think Juan does really well on his channel is he talks about things that investigators might ask, and frames it that way, right? It's not, hey, here's your clickbait headline, FO screws it up, everybody dies. It's here's some questions that investigators might look into as they're looking into this. And what you have to look into, Gonky, having been a safety guy, is they're going to look at the obvious stuff, engines, fuel systems, the crew, all the stuff that everybody's already talked about. But then they're going to go into other stuff like the oddball, like security, right? Was there a jump seater? Was there a security threat to the aircraft prior or during? Is there some kind of credible intelligence that something may have happened outside of that? They will look at all of the other factors. Was weather a factor? Was, birds fought on the runway? All kind of other stuff that may not be immediately apparent, that sometimes it ends up being what it is. I mean, remember the Alaska Air jump seater that shut down pulled the
Yep.
or tried to pull the fire handles. And it's like, that's kind of stuff we don't like. You wouldn't have thought that, right? And sometimes some of these things are just stuff you never would have expected.
Yeah, if he was successful, right, and somebody filmed it and the plane just crashed, it's like, well, clearly whatever. And then you just don't know that, there was somebody else in the cockpit. So no, I mean, those are good points, and those are all things that'll come out in the investigation. And I mean, they're still sifting through wreckage. They're still it's data collection time, I mean, it's going to be a while. I mean,
and I think the other part too is the families, we grieve with them, right? Because even though, I mean, it's across the world from us, aviation is a rather tight-knit community, and we don't want to see anyone grieving because of something one of our, I guess, brothers in arms, was involved with, because for us, aviation's personal. Aviation is, and that's like when you talk about, another fighter gets shot down, it's not, oh, hey man, he's, Russian or whatever. It's like, hey, we want you to get shot down, but we don't really want you to die.
Yeah. Punch out.
Yeah. It's the kill effect, but not the actual kill, because I mean we have that mutual respect for all pilots because it's a rare profession, and
Yeah.
I'm proud of it.
Yeah, and then of course, I mean there was a lot of people on that airplane, man, and being a family man, I just think about all the the wives and kids and just the families that are destroyed.
yeah.
And they killed, I mean, people died on the ground too, right? So I mean, you're just bebopping along with your day, and a 787 takes you out. So thoughts and prayers out to, I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many people who are affected, and the hope at this point, thank God there was one survivor.
11A.
11A, yeah, that's the seat to get.
But Gonky, even that, the initial thing was he jumped out, and that's how he survived. Like, he jumped out before they crashed.
Oh, dude.
Which was, first of all, the doors are locked.
Yeah.
These exit doors are locked. But second, what?
Yeah. If you try jumping out of your car at 170 miles an hour and see how it turns out.
Yeah.
From how high was it? 600, even if it's on the ground, how high is a 787 set? 25 feet, something like that.
Well, there's a reason when you get out, like for us to emergency ground egress, there's a rappelling system.
Yeah.
Like there's a no kidding rope that you have to lower yourself down.
We got a rope too.
Yeah. You go up through the ceiling and over. And you gotta hope you can hang on all the way down.
I read that where he jumped out. I'm like, dude, the guy was involved in a just horrific crash. I mean, dude, that thing was full of jet fuel for a pretty long flight, and it's just it's a miracle that even he survived.
I would be curious how. I mean, just that is like golden BB, because that one piece of the aircraft had to crash just such that it, the person next to him died. Like that one spot. I mean, that's, whew.
Yeah, that's, I mean, towards the front of the, I don't know how many rows are in a 7-8, but I mean, 11 is pretty far up front.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, regardless, man, I mean, honestly, it's a miracle. I saw that's the second time there's been one survivor in an airline where the seat was 11A. I don't think there's any correlation as far as 11A is the safest built structure on the airplane. I just think it's divine intervention, man, for him. That's wild.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. All right, so let's talk about it, because all our pre-whatever stuff's out of the way. Doug, you show the video and turn up the volume too, if you could, beforehand, because this is going to be crucial. So this is the higher quality of the cell phone video, and you can see it just mushing in.
Yeah.
Do you have the other video, Doug?
The original one, or the one from the CCTV?
CCTV.
Yeah, here we go.
That doesn't have any audio, so you're fine. Just have to make it full screen. Full screen.
It is full screen. I have it. Yeah, that's all we get.
Stop it right there. So FlightAware had posted that the speeds, and I think they were extrapolated, so I'm not sure how realistic it was or how valid it was, but the speeds at the end of the runway, I'm going to share my screen for a second, Doug, if you don't mind. Do you see this? Oh, we were looking at it. We're fighting each other now.
No, actually, I haven't changed anything.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So as you see here, this is calculated. So it's not an exact science, but one of the things I found interesting, this is obviously the runway here at the airport. It looks like somewhere towards the like that high-speed taxiway is about when they start to get airborne. They're 21 feet here, 184 knots. And you actually, if this is correct, shows a deceleration trend all the way through here, crossing the overrun at 71 feet. It's an 11,000-ish foot runway. And I think that is something that they are going to take a look at. We're very fixated right now on, you can go back to yours, Doug, that CCTV video. We're very fixated on this right now, but
now we're fighting each other.
All right, but we're fixated on from this part forward, but
Right.
I think they're going to go even farther back as how far whatever event caused this started. Because to me, the deceleration and the low altitude crossing that runway crossing, this is where we're already thinking, okay, what is happening? Why is this the way it is?
Yeah,
because it pitches up and then settles back down. Go ahead, Gonky. Sorry.
No, we talked a little bit about this earlier. When you said, yeah, the dust blowing up is the end of the runway, right? Where airplanes normally aren't flying that close.
That was the other part too. It could just be dirty. I mean, those are the vortices coming off. I mean, it could just be a dusty runway.
It could, man. But I watched a couple other 787s just on YouTube taking off from here, and your assumption, or kind of what you're alluding to, as far as like it just something doesn't look right. You know what I'm saying?
It looks very delayed or low.
Yeah, exactly. So a normal 7.8 takeoff is with much more authority and better climb rate.
Well, let's talk about that. So again, my views are my own, don't represent any airline. This is not official. This is for educational purposes. When you take off, this is standard across most airliners. I think, as we've talked about Gonky with Airbus and stuff, we just use different terminology. Starting at the gate, you get a flight plan. And that flight plan, I mean, and airlines could be different about how they handle stuff, but generally speaking, you get a flight plan and you get data. And that data includes the runway in use. With this one, it's pretty easy. It's one runway, right? So they would have the runway 23 data, and that would come with a flap setting for the Boeing 787-8. The takeoff flap settings are 5, 15, and 20. Those are the approved takeoff flap settings, at least in my manual. There may be other ones. They may do something different, but we do 5, 15, and 20. So you get a number, and it'll say, okay, you are taking off. And they also have 3 basic power settings. TO, which gives you 69,800 pounds of thrust per motor, and that's the whole kit and caboodle. We don't fly that because of the longevity of the engines, noise abatement, environmental concerns. There's this whole list of reasons why we derate, but we derate engines. So the 787 can then go TO1, which is a reduction from TO, and then TO2, which is a further reduction. And then from that, we can derate it by putting in what's called an assumed temperature. You're basically tricking the box like, hey, here's the, it's assume this temperature outside versus what's actually happened. Usually it's hotter than what it is, and that derates the engine because you don't need all that performance. And that spits out an N1 number that is, let's say 89% or whatever. Again, 787 check airman, please don't ground hook me. It's been a minute. I've been sick for a while, so I haven't flown in a minute. But you take these numbers, you put it in the box. The FMC looks at the zero fuel weight. It looks at what it has calculated as the weight based on the actual fuel, so it knows how much fuel is on the aircraft. And then you put the trim setting in, and you set all that up. And then as you push back, you get what's called the load closeout. And that load closeout then is them telling you, here's what you actually had. You had all these assumptions, but here's what you actually had. And it's the first officer's job, at least at my company. But you've got FBFC, which was another question I had too. That was like an 8-ish hour flight. Were they only a 2-man crew? Because typically that starts pushing hey, we're going to be a 3-man crew, but I digress. So as you go back, you take all that information, you take the load closeout. It tells you how many souls are on board, what your actual weights were, the zero fuel weight, the cargo weight, all the stuff, all that stuff. It's this little slip, and you take it and you go weights, winds, and temperatures, and then your power settings. So the FO goes back because it all uplinks usually, and you go and you confirm that your zero fuel weight was correct. So the basic assumption of the aircraft of how much weight is on board is correct. The weights are all good. They all match what you planned, what you expected, where you're at. You make sure that you got the fuel where you're going to go, because we have a fuel number at the end of the runway. So we need to make sure we got the fuel to go do what we're going to do, right, to take off. Then wind, you check the wind, make sure, check the ATIS. Hey, am I a tailwind? Because that changes your performance data. You may have to remove the D rate. And then you check the temperature. Is the temperature within a certain number of degrees of what you've derated? Because if it is, and it's wrong, you either have to get new data or you remove the D rate, because you don't want to be tricking the box too much and have these numbers too close. That's usually when it's like a high, hot, heavy day, which when I say high, hot, heavy, I know they were near sea level, but it's high density altitude. High as in hot, humid, 3,000, 4,000 foot density altitude could be a factor for something like that. So you make sure all those numbers are correct. Then you go in and you say, okay, I've got my speeds, because you got your V speeds. The speeds are what numbers are bugged. So, rotation speed, V1, all that stuff is in there so that, and that it's calling out the correct numbers. Your engine out speed. So if you lose an engine in this aircraft, it's got plenty of excess thrust. I mean, the numbers are planned so that you can hit V1, and if it happens right after V1, you can keep going. You can take off. Before V1, you reject the takeoff, but after V1, you can keep going. Now, if you're fully loaded on a hot day, you're going to use a lot of sky and a lot of ground track to get up to your cleanup altitude, but it's going to happen. But it doesn't happen fast, but it's going to happen. So you check that, and then you check your thrust reduction altitude, which there's NADP1, NADP2, which is all stuff. All of this stuff is garbage in, garbage out. And that's my point, is that at some point in here, if you get the wrong data or you mix up something, you can have an underpowered aircraft that maybe you weren't expecting. I mean, I've made mistakes, right? I've been there, made that mistake. Luckily, it nothing happened of it, but I've made mistakes. I'm not going to ever say that I'm not somebody that makes mistakes. So that's something right there. It's a human factors things. Now, as you're going to the runway, you're checking that. And the thing about the 787 is that it's a super smart airplane. When you start the engines, unless there's icing or something like that, you're usually putting the flaps to the takeoff setting right then and there. That there's usually no reason to delay. It says, you know what, I'll give you this one for free. If you don't put the flaps down there, it's just a checklist item, because it's an electronic checklist. You're clicking stuff off as you go. It's a closed loop checklist too, though. So it knows if you've done the thing that it expects you to do. And if you don't, it will never let you check it off unless you override it. So when you get to the before takeoff, the very last one, before you do your, taking the runway, it no longer lets you have that closed loop option anymore. So if you had called for flaps 15 and you had flaps 5, it won't turn green. It'll go, no, it's the box is looking for that. But if you had flaps 5 and you have flaps 5 and the lever and everything matches, it's going to turn green. You don't even have to talk about it. That's how smart this airplane is. Like, it is pretty good. So you do that, verify everything. And then the very last thing, MCP VSD ND. So the control panel, you confirm, you go across left to right. My speed is set. My heading bug is selected for the runway. Am I in VNAV, LNAV for the departure that I'm flying? Is the altitude set for the right, the lowest or the highest number that my altitude constraint is? And is everything set up across? And then you go down ND VSD. So your situational display essentially is what that is. And your vertical situational display. Does that say checked runway 23? That's a final check. We were on the right runway. Everything is good. and you say good to go, good to go. So the airplane knows where it is. It knows what runways it's on. And if at any point you did that wrong and you said, hey, you know what? I forgot the flaps. It will give you every alarm possible. If it senses that you're on the right runway and you push up the power, it's an uncancelable master warning. It just will keep blaring at you. So that's one thing. So second, it'll give you a checklist incomplete normal because you didn't set the flaps to what it expected to, because it's a closed loop item unless you overrode it. So that's like, as a 787 pilot, why I go back to, hey, you just know better. It's almost willful if you got to that position and took off, and it would be super, super loud and super annoying. Now, when you take off, we pre-position the throttles to let them spool up to 40%. Hold that, toga. So for us, it's whoever's flying says toga, and then the pilot monitoring, because now we're pilot flying, pilot monitoring. Pilot monitoring says thrust set, and what he's doing is he's confirming that the thrust number that it hit matches what it was expected to hit. So that's another check. You go down the runway, 80 knots. We then check to make sure the instruments are good on both sides. Pilot says 80, says checked. We're good to go. V1 rotate. So V1, captain takes his hand off the throttle. This is all airline dependent. Captain takes his hand off the throttle. Why? Because you're not going to reject, right? So at that point, he's not going to reject. We're guarding, but we're taking our hand off because now it's all auto throttle. Because you don't want to, rip the throttle idle. You're past V1 and now you're aborting. So, or rejecting, I should say. Rotate, call from the pilot monitoring. He pulls back on the stick. Climb it up. Pilot monitoring says positive rate. Pilot flying says gear up. It happens that fast. I have seen some reports of people saying, well, they leave gear down intentionally. At my airline, and I don't know of any other ones, but at my airline, that's not something we would do, because the reason you might do that is for hot brakes, and we won't do that. We won't take off with hot brakes. It's very rare on a taxi out like that to get hot brakes. Usually for us, it's taxi in. You taxi in, you step on the brakes, you got a long taxi, you taxi back dual engine instead of single engine. If you got that hot brake message while you were about to take, you wouldn't, because then you're rejected takeoff because the fuse plugs and stuff. We wouldn't just leave the gear down. It would be a checklist item once you got airborne. It's a whole thing. I don't find that to be a likely scenario unless it's something some other country is doing. And I don't personally think that's a good practice if that's something. But again, I just know what we do and the reason we don't do it. So maybe I'm wrong on that. But that's it. That is the whole thing from taking off. Sorry, Gonky, I've talked too much.
No, dude, that's good. I mean, it's a 787 that went down, and you're the expert. So I fly the A320 airliner, and it's very similar. Everything you described is very similar to Airbus, even though they label things different. I guess my question for you is, when you guys, when you're getting your data, when you're getting your takeoff data,
mm-hmm.
and you're putting in all the info in the box, my first question is, if it spits it, will it tell you, hey, you got to pick a different runway if it's too short? You know what I'm saying? Well, let's say, or the tailwind's too strong. It won't. Okay.
No, so garbage in, garbage out, right? So it doesn't make assessments. So the 787 does have an EFB that is off to your right if you're the FO, off to the left. And it can do optimum calculations, and it'll do that. We do not use that. We rely on dispatch.
Yep.
Because we have great dispatchers. We rely on our company and our flight manuals on our iPads. So we don't use that. Other countries may. It's a feature, and you can pull data from that to the box. But for us, it makes no assessment. The winds or the temperature and all that stuff. You have to make sure that it's on the correct runway, which you set up, when you do your flight plan. In fact, you always, when you have like a runway change or something, they always tell you to work backwards from the runway and then to build the SID, make all that stuff. Because if you don't do the runway, sometimes it'll drop out and all that stuff. And as much as I love this airplane, it's a Boeing product, right? So sometimes things will drop out. You're like, where did it go? Why is it doing that? There was an AD for VNAV out capturing. If you put 0 or close to the field elevation on the ground, it never goes to toga. So what will happen is as soon as you take off, you hit the autopilot, it'll nose over because it's trying to capture. It's already in VNAV capture, which is like, that's not a feature. But no, it never makes an assessment like, hey, this is invalid. You have to be able to QC that yourself.
Okay. And then anytime you're doing a derated takeoff, and I guess my assumption, I haven't looked, but my assumption is they went full length on the runway.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing derated takeoff in the 7.8, does it ever calculate it to where like, hey, we're going to use 11,000 and 11,000?
Because you can't use
Right.
11,000 because of the balance field and the rejection and stuff. You
Yep.
have to have the ability to, up to the 3-second reaction to V1.
Yeah.
You have to be starting that rejection at V1. And if you went all the way, so the V1 VR split is dependent on environmental factors, right? The winds, temperatures, but the runway condition. A wet runway, and I've seen this a lot where it's like V1, and you've practiced it so many times in the sim that you're starting to do it, and like, wait a minute, no, I got a couple potatoes.
Right.
It's from my memory, the -9 has more of a spread than the -8 because it's longer, heavier. It has a little bit more thrust, but not enough to make up for it. So it's a little bit, if you get a fully loaded -9 on a hot day, it takes every little bit of runway. But I've never seen it where it's like all the way to, the one board and you're taking off into the overrun. Like I've never seen that planned that way.
Yeah, I know where I'm at. I mean, there's buffers, right, and safety distances. So I mean, it'll never. And I guess where I'm going with that is, I mean, he used up a lot of that runway, and that didn't strike me as a normal, like I said, a normal takeoff profile on a 7.8, because I don't think any airliner out there will, when you get the takeoff data back, will give you a takeoff where you use that much of an available runway.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the ram air turbine, because you could hear it in that video that Doug showed. You can hear the buzzing as it goes by, and that sounds like a propeller, because that's what it is. Ram air turbine. It's behind the left main gear, and it deploys. So it's basically, it does its own thing, but it needs certain conditions to deploy on its own. You can manually deploy it. Like you can reach up there, hit the rat button, and drop it out. In fact, if you have some kind of emergency on takeoff, our training is 400 feet. You are smoking a lucky until 400 feet. And only at 400 feet are you doing the quick QRC, the quick reference card, quick reaction checklist, what used to be memory items, because we don't do memory items anymore. We do QRC, so you don't mess it up. But up to 400 feet, you are just accepting what you accept, and that's AGL. So that 400 feet, because it gives you that wiggle room. You can even hit the autopilot. Like I've done that, take off, and then hit the autopilot, let it fly. The 787 is awesome. It's not as good as the 777, which will trim the yaw out on the ground. But the 787, as soon as you get airborne, you got an engine failure, you're not putting trim in. You just, it's doing it for you. Like once you're airborne, it's amazing. So you're flying away, and that buffer from 0 to 400 feet, you're just flying. You're just, here. At 400 feet, you call for the checklist. Now, that's when you start, put the fire out, whatever, engine severe damage, a fire, something that is, I have to deal with this right now. I cannot wait. Because otherwise, we would wait all the way till cleanup, until we've got all our ducks in a row, flaps are up, gears up. We're just cruising along. Okay, go for the checklist. And the 787, again, very smart aircraft. It tells you what's wrong with it. It'll pop up a container that says left engine failure, left engine control, whatever has failed, it'll let you know, because it knows everything that's going on with itself. So a dual engine failure, for example, the only thing you do in that, because that's in the QRC, is you reach down and the fuel controls, you cut them off and cut them back on because that resets the EECs. The EEC is going to try to restart those engines. That's its whole job. It's going to try to relight. But usually it's a cross bleed start. Well, if you got no engines, it's trying to figure out a way to do it as long as it's windmill and it's going to try. And then you reach up and hit the rat. But if you don't, if it's really 5, but there's 4 things that'll cause it. If you're dual engine failure, so engines roll back below idle, it will deploy the rat. If you've got hydraulic failure, it will deploy the rat. If your FO and captain screens, of all things, but because that's the electrical system, right? If those screens go out, it'll deploy the rat, because then it'll try to give somebody something to fly. There are hydraulic pumps. In addition to the hydraulic pump failure plus the engine failure, it'll deploy the rat, because now it's like, hey, this is degraded. Also, if 3 generators fall offline, the APU will start running. And I think in that wreckage picture, you may have seen the APU door open.
Yeah.
This aircraft, because remember Sully, he's like, I'm starting the APU, and everybody makes that joke. I'm starting the APU, and the 7.3 is not that smart. And we asked that question when we were talking about Jeju, about whether they were starting the APU or not, because that gives you, the hydraulics and stuff. This jet, it's like, I don't care what you do, dude. I'm doing it. Now, the problem though is that it takes longer than 30 seconds for the thing to spool up. Like, it's not gonna, be alive. That rat is your first line of defense. That thing is what's going to give you the hydraulics and the electrical power to fly the airplane in a glide. And those seconds give you that. So the rat deployed could be a number of things. We always think engine failure, but it could be, catastrophic hydraulic failure. It could be other stuff as well. It could be part of an electrical system problem. If the 2 displays went out because they lost all electrical power. That brings up another thing that I think people have asked or talked about. A catastrophic electrical problem is isolated from the engines. So the 2 engines they don't call them FADEX. What's a FADEX? Full authority digital engine control.
Electronic control, yeah.
Yeah. Everybody talks about
Engine
FADEX.
Control. Engine control. Yeah.
The 787 has EECs, electronic engine control. So Boeing, we wanted to change the name, but they're dual channel EECs. They're dual channel EECs with multiple failure modes within the channels. So you've got the primary, you've got soft alternate, you got hard alternate. The book, because I went and looked at this because I'm like, it's curious. The book says nothing about what happens if there's completely no, it can't even do hard or soft alternate. And that is because it's fully redundant, but also on the power system, it's fully redundant because it uses permanent magnet alternators to power itself from the aircraft. So a complete AC failure will not affect the engines running because it uses that in the battery for backup so you can start it on the ground. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, basically what you're saying is they have their own independent electrical system isolated from the rest of the airplane. So you could have dead batteries and no electrical power coming from the airplane, but the little computers that run the engines, they're powered.
Yes.
Yeah.
As long as
the core's turning.
Yeah, as long as it's producing enough, and they're separate from each other, right? So, engine 1, engine 2, that's why it's kind of weird, right? A full electrical power, you think, okay, one engine, even if that were true, they're isolated. So there's no way for the streams to cross. Now, I say no way. I speak in things that I have been taught, and I know to the best of my knowledge now. We didn't know about MCAS when MCAS happened. There are things that sometimes manufacturers don't tell you until something like this happens. They're like, oh yeah, there's the one. And, we statistically decided that was such an anomaly that it would never happen. And we never wanted to brief you on. And like, well, wait a minute. What
surprise.
Yeah. What do you mean? So there's that fuel system. Same thing. You could lose everything and it would suction feed. It suction feeds off its respective main tank. So as long as the engine is turning, it's trying to, now granted, there are conditions where the suction feed won't work, but that's usually higher altitude. As you get higher altitude, less dense air, it starts to get bubbles and, it could flame out. But at low altitude, you should at least have your EEC and your fuel for one engine, because with the idea that two of them would fail, the only thing common between the two engines is your fuel system.
Yeah. Yeah. When I look at this, it's a short flight, unfortunately, right? So, to me, the facts that stand out are, I think the takeoff roll is abnormal. So if we're going with the assumption that the airplane was maintained properly and the flight crew is operating per normal SOP, in my mind, I'm like, something must have happened right around V1 for the captain to decide to keep going, right? Because anything weird happens before that, we're all trained to, we can stop the airplane safely in the remaining runway. And then, seeing the airplane get airborne, the whole idea, when I first saw the whole flap argument, in a airliner, wings are designed for high speed cruise. So, the airplane was very stable, right? And I didn't see there was no ailerons flapping, no spoilers flapping. There was no aerodynamic buffet from what I could see in that video going on. So I'm like, the wing looks like it's relatively flying okay. And then, of course, the big thing for me was when the captain made the transmission, right? Mayday, loss of thrust, something like that.
Loss of thrust, yeah.
Loss of thrust. So that's a huge clue. And just looking at the facts, kind of like you just alluded to, he said losing thrust, and everything I just talked about, the takeoff roll, the climb out looked abnormal. Something was causing that airplane not to have enough thrust to fly. And I, like similar to, 15 years ago when the Hornet crashed in San Diego and killed the family of the Marine Hornet. And as soon as I heard it was dual engine failure, I kind of went down the same train of thought that you're doing, Mover. It's like, okay, what would cause both? Because you take a bird on one side, we would have saw maybe a yaw, a rudder deflection, or we would have seen pop, bang, buzz or something out of the engines. We didn't see any of that.
That's a very valid point. We talked about Jeju,
right? And
Jeju was a very obvious. Now, granted, the 787 engine is it's like nearly a hull of a 737. It's a huge engine. So you're talking human-sized birds to do any damage to this thing that are like titanium birds. And even then, it's going to produce some thrust because it's going to do the pop, bang, buzz, the blades turn. To have two engines catastrophically fail, producing zero thrust and rolling back to get the core slow enough that the rat deploys would be, again, we talk 1 in a million, but a dude in 11A survived this. So this may be a 1 in a million crash. It's just for the engines to roll back that fast and they get the rat deployed that fast. It had to happen super early. And
and we're going with the assumption that good airplane, trained crew, and it had to happen past V1. So
that's the variables. Like once you start putting human factors into this, because how many times have we seen where not a good airplane, maintenance problems, and Swiss cheese, because it's always a Swiss cheese that's got to line up.
Yeah, but that's what we're gonna let. That's what we're gonna let the investigators do. They're gonna find
100%. Yeah,
they're gonna find hey, maintenance did this, because I've seen I saw some videos circulating about maintenance irregularities with this very airplane a couple of flights previously. But you can't just because the entertainment system doesn't work doesn't mean the major systems of the airplane isn't working. Again, you got to let the pros dig up all the facts, but just from what we know, from what us as the public have seen, and from what the captain says, something caused, again, those engines not to produce enough thrust for that airplane to fly away. And when we're talking engines, there's only 3 things you need: fuel, air, and a spark, right? So the only way to shut down both engines at the same time, and I don't buy birds going through. The video is good enough. Yeah. The video is good enough. We can hear the rat. We would hear an anomaly with the engines, but it's if I don't know. Somehow the ignition the ignition switch is going off, or
fuel cutoffs.
fuel,
Yeah,
more
you turn
fuel.
the fuel cutoffs off. Going back to the Alaska thing you were talking
Yeah,
about. Somebody
right.
pulls the fuel cutoffs, or the fire unlocks
Yeah.
the fire handles. The other thing to bring up too, airplane smart, right? As long as the flaps are out in that mid range, the slats will attempt to keep the aircraft from stalling. So if they are out and you do reef back on the yoke, what's going to happen is, number one, it's going to fight you because the airplane's smarter than you. It's going to try to push the nose over. But number two, and then it's going to trim. So at first it's going to try the stick shaker, and then it's going to try to trim you out. But then second, it's going to deploy the slats as far as it can to try to keep that stall from happening. And the throttles are going to start coming up. I saw two very fake air mishap reports. One of them was that the captain's seat had come undone and he ripped the throttle to idle. One of them was that the servicing, that was raining and it got the electrical system wet and all this stuff. Those were both fake. One of them was like the one with the captain's seat. When he rips it to idle, they go, oh, and causal was that he didn't call go around. I don't know about Air India, but at my company, you would not call a go around on takeoff. There was also the like stab trim cutout, and you're like, what even call is that? That's not for that. You might call escape. You might call my aircraft. We teach the startle factor my aircraft to who's flying the plane. And that might be a scenario. And that could be what happened. We don't know. That's like you talked about. I just don't start jumping to conclusions, because no one in an investigative position is going to start making announcements within 4 or 5 days after the crash.
Let me ask you this. And if you don't know, it's cool. I don't mean to put you on the spot with
I don't know.
77 questions.
I don't know. Hold on. Let me get the book up.
So in the Airbus, if things are normal, working normally, this is assumption, working airplane. If you find yourself in a low energy state, it will command alpha floor. So it will bring the thrust in all by itself. Does the 787 do something similar? So if you start to get behind the power curve,
yes. Yeah, we actually practice that. We go up to in the sim, because I'm a professional recurrent guy. I go to the sim more than I fly the airplane. That's why I'm so smart on it, because I spend all my time doing emergencies. But
nice.
That actually is one of the profiles. As you go and they're like, okay, hold the throttle, and you can feel the gears, because the throttle moves. So you can feel the gears and you're like, are we breaking this thing? Because you're holding the throttle and the airplane's trying to wake itself up. It'll wake up the throttles. It'll push them back up. Even if the auto throttles are off, once it hits that protection, it's like, you know what? You're an idiot. Yep. I'm not going to let you crash this airplane. Now you can override it. If you hold it, you can physically hold it and it won't do it. But if you just let go, it's going to push the power up to try to make that thing fly, and it's going to push the stick forward, and it's going to try to trim you out, and it's going to try to it's going to do everything it can to save that airplane.
Yeah. And so what we saw there for the last really half of the flight of that airplane was it entering a low energy state. Mm-hmm. I mean, with the alpha AOA, or the pitch increasing as they're, getting close to the ground, as the airspeed is bleeding off, which is the energy bleeding off. It sounds like that system should have been able to come in and,
you would have, more than likely in that scenario, if that's the case, you would probably have, with all the alarms going off, because you're probably talking, ICAS is going off, master warnings, all that stuff's going off right now, right? But you're probably feeling the stick shaker. You're probably hearing JipWiz going, don't sink, too low terrain. Like, it is yelling everything it possibly can at you. Meanwhile, these two people are trying to, I would imagine in that 30-second time from the time they got airborne, hit the peak of their flight and started down, it was pure chaos. And I think whenever the CVR comes, which it never does, but there's video, that aircraft was actually equipped with, I think Air India had bought the video
Oh,
system
in the
that we're talking
cockpit.
about. I think there's video. If they
Oh,
can
dude.
salvage it, I think there's going to be video.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, the captain obviously knew, he had enough SA to realize that there's something wrong with his airplane.
If that call is real.
If that call is, yeah.
I mean, unconfirmed as far as,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Mayday
yeah.
call and
Yeah.
all that stuff. If that call is real and legit, that would, but again, hearing that turbine, it's hard to see. I really haven't seen a good picture of it.
Yeah, me neither.
But that sound does not sound like two good engines working. I mean, that sounds like a prop going by. So
yeah, and it doesn't sound. I mean, it's not like I've heard a lot of 787s, but it'd be to me, it'd be making more noise if they had it firewalled trying to.
and dude, it'll fly out of a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, they were heavy. It was hot. It's about 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
But still,
but that's still 69,000 pounds of thrust per engine. The risk with a 787, as you find with the low slung engines and most airliners, is if you firewall it, it'll give you that, and it'll pitch the nose up and put you into the secondary stall. Like
yeah,
it,
you gotta
it
hold
just
it down.
wants to, yeah. So if you're not ready for it, and you're already in a stall, it's just going to reef the nose back some more.
Were those speeds that we saw in that diagram, as far as liftoff and over the end of the runway, are those? I know it varies with aircraft weight, but are those ballpark takeoff numbers for a 7.8?
That depends on the wind. Yeah, 160 something would probably be about right. So yeah, I mean, I would say that's not, if anything, it might even be fast. It might have been a heavy aircraft.
Right. Well, I know it was a hot day and obviously
Yeah.
loaded, but I don't, for an
Yeah.
A320 guy, those speeds as far as on the ground seem a little on the high side, but again, much heavier airplane with the 7.8.
Yeah, and I think wrapping up this topic, because we've been talking about it for almost an hour now, and we've really beaten the dead horse. I'm not here to pontificate. I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to cast aspersions or do doubt or any of the things. We're here to just have a discussion about it as pilots. I thought it'd be worthwhile to kind of explain stuff from some of the training I've been fortunate enough to have. I hope none of it was completely wrong. If it was, I apologize. I haven't. My last event was right before I went down on medical 3 months ago. So, but this was a good refresher. Nothing brings it out to you're like, can it do that? Will it do that?
Yeah. And even though I've never flown 7.8, I've been, Navy safety school. It's like, don't try it. I haven't watched any of the other videos on speculation what happened, because I just don't want, I don't want to be influenced. Right. So the best thing to do is just look at the facts, and as they are released to us, as they reveal themselves, and then piece it together, or, the professionals will do it and tell us what happened. And I just, it's a sad event.
I hope so. Something like this, though, you often wonder if you're ever going to get the full story, because when the interests get involved,
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. For the sake of worldwide aviation, because the 7.8 is used all over the world, I think it
was the safest airliner, dude. Before this, it had like the best safety record.
Yeah.
But all it takes is once, and Boeing has had their issues.
Yeah, they have, but I don't know. It's India has their own version of FAA, and I saw that Boeing is over there as well.
Boeing, GE,
yeah,
everybody's going to be out there,
right? People want to know. I mean, if there's a Boeing, people bash on Boeing, but dude, if there's a design problem in the airplane, they want to fix it. If GE is out there and they're like, dude, something we messed up, they want to fix it. They don't want that to happen again. I mean, these are companies that are engineers that are people. So
I fly it.
Right.
I want to be safe.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I wouldn't be
vested interest.
Listen, you guys know me. If I thought the thing was a turd, I'd tell you.
Yeah. I would be out of there in a heartbeat. Seat lock be damned.
Would not. Yeah. There would be no, no. You'd be hearing me say, It's just a big 737, and then I don't like it. But
Yeah,
7-8
trim cut off
yeah,
for sure.
she's a good girl. I like her. All right, back to the chat, and then we got to talk about the next breaking news. Gonky, we're gonna be here all night.
I know. Yo-yo ops, bro.
The Islamic Steak says, "Rip Tomcats."
I don't know.
We're gonna talk about that in a minute. Thomas says, "For Luna Snacks in the new AT4, hope she likes it." Yeah, she does like it. She's quieter, rides better.
I haven't read. I'm looking forward to my AT4 ride.
Withy did.
I know, man.
Yeah,
I'm jealous.
Whoever did you have surgery? I had a procedure. They put me to sleep. They called it a surgery.
It's traumatic.
It was, dude. I tell you, most pain I've ever been in. I'm not exaggerating. That first night, I was like, First night home sucked, and then the last night, Friday day, there was about a 2-hour period where I'm like, and then the skies parted, the seas parted. It became like, oh, okay. And now I'm just sore, and hopefully I'll be back to normal. I'm gonna try to run tomorrow. That's why I was asking you when the last time you ran was, because me and Luna might try to run in the morning.
Yeah, let her run.
Brian says, "Driving across Texas, glad to have you on today."
Nice,
is it West Texas? You know that long
I-10? It's like a treadmill out there for a car.
Hold on. I'm answering our private chat.
Oh.
Is that polo for sale? Looks awesome. That's a special one-off.
That's a one.
We need
We had big plans, and I'm holding out.
You should pass that along to our chief of merchandising.
Don't we have polos?
No, not yet. Tim says 11A has survived 2 different aircraft crashes. Why?
Divine intervention, man. Yeah.
I mean, imagine being the
dude, every gate agent across the country, and I was like, well, everybody wants seat 11A. It's like the most popular.
Robert says, "For coffee and snacks."
Thanks, Robert.
I can't eat snacks anymore. So many foods I can't have anymore, dude.
It's just movers on a water diet. Period.
It's like water and ice.
Water and ice.
Lemon juice is what this is. From the Snacko, jalapeno popcorn. Do you think jalapeno popcorn's? Nah, that's probably fine.
Yeah.
Hey, Ron says the Israelis took out the Tomcats, Mav.
Mm.
We'll talk about it here in a second. American Idiocracy. That's a good name. It's okay, guys. We've learned to manage expectations. Matthew Brothers. What was the buzz sound like a prop? The
rat.
Ram Air turbine. The rat.
The rat.
Alex, Adventures in Aviation and Adventure. What's up, Alec?
Look at that.
Could they have hit something like a bird that we can't see in one of the video? The engine sounded different. I may be wrong. It's possible.
Yeah.
The thing is to affect both engines simultaneously, resulting in dual engine flame out and the deployment of the rat. It just seems unlikely.
Yeah, there's no Canadian geese in India, right? I mean, it's not like, right? I mean, that's what Sully hit, right?
Yeah. I don't think Canadian geese would take out those engines.
That's what I'm saying, because the 7.8 engine is the size of the
whole Airbus. That whole 319 could, the 7.8 could take a 319 in the engine, and that might be what it could take a Sully right through the engine, and that's pop, bang, and buzz.
Alec, to answer your question is maybe. We don't know.
100% maybe. I just think it's unlikely.
Yeah, I do too, but that doesn't. We've been very wrong many times. This ain't the news or nothing. So
this is why we don't wear airline uniforms.
No.
Subi says, "What's up, fellas? I used to ride a street bike, and for me, turning left always felt more natural than right. I'm curious if either of you felt more natural banking one way to that. Oh yeah, left.
Yo, left.
Any other direction is common.
Yeah. The carrier brake is to the left.
Yeah. Anytime you went somewhere, it's like right brake. You're like,
oh no. I'll be at 2,000 feet because this is gonna be hard. I can't do this level. Yeah, left.
All over the
place. It's just
it's a pull versus push. Push is easier than pull.
It's not comfortable. Yeah. And same thing with riding motorcycles. I'm more comfortable with.
Same thing with defensive BFM sets. It's easier to go this way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
throttle's on the left. Yeah, it's just left is
Everything,
just right.
everything left is NASCAR.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
I mean, left-hand turns,
Yeah.
wheel.
Yeah.
I mean, formation, you wanted to be on the right so you could look left.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. Also,
yes.
so you don't get hit in the brake.
That's true, because you're going to break left.
Yeah, 'cause
It's
we're
like,
gonna break
and if
left.
we're breaking right, we're coming into the singles.
Yeah. Griff says, evening, folks. Got here late, just caught up to live. Mover, do you prefer if we don't tag you when we see news? You might. No, I do. I appreciate. I was joking. I appreciate it. Wombat may not be as appreciative, so maybe don't tag him as much. I say that because he may not. He's a man of privacy. Gonky, he's gonna be mad at me because I said his name. If I say it one more time, he appears.
He'll understand. I mean, he's got family and stuff. I mean, he bounces it well, and he tries to keep it in check.
Gonky, hope the rest of your trip went well.
Yeah, it did. Thank you. We made it down here without any major issues. Thank you.
Skid says, Doug, tell Mover I will sign off his recurrent training record. I can't wait, dude. This is gonna get picked apart. Like next time I go, they're gonna be like,
we'll be queued up in the screen in the back.
You thought that it did what?
Yeah. Dude. Yeah. It'll be so. Yeah, he'll have his uniform on that day.
Yeah.
Just
come on, smart guy. You know the answer. You said it on the show.
Yeah. So tell me more about that low energy state system again.
What stick shaker?
Yeah.
Rhino IA says bad fuel, just like the water in India. Did you see? I didn't watch the race, but I saw like 2 or 3 drivers were complaining because they drank the water in Mexico City because they raced in Mexico City and it was coming out both ends.
Oh no.
Yeah, they were like in the car. It's like TMI.
Oh no. No.
Not everybody knew that.
Bottled water if you're ever in doubt, man.
Question from the peanut gallery: could the rat have been faulty?
Like in what way? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's only it could.
You mean if it deployed as when it shouldn't have?
No, because you can't hear engines, dude.
I mean, I guess to answer your question, it's made by a human being, so yeah, I guess it could be.
So it could have been deployed, and the engines could have been working.
Right.
We just don't hear them. Right. We're focused on that one sound because you can. I mean, the rat can deploy for electrical problems, which they already had with all the other stuff. The rat can deploy for hydraulic problems, which would explain why the gear wasn't raised. But it wouldn't explain why they ended up low power mushing it in.
Right.
Because the only thing, as long as the throttle's working.
Based on the airplane crashing, I think probably the rat was doing its job, trying to get certain systems back online for the pilots. But
the rat is like the F-16's EPU. It gives you just enough that you can fly it until you can get the motors running again. Its job is to give you some control while you're figuring out the rest of your life. So it's not necessarily designed for. The problem is once it's out, you can't come back. It's
right.
You got to be reset. So if you pop that thing out, but that's a whole nother story.
Right.
Asset Akar from Turkey A. Hi, friends. Love and respect from Turkey A. 3:43 a.m. Thank you for the awesome show.
That's awesome, man. Thank you.
I love
every week, man.
John says my niece is getting ready to start flight training at the Air Force Academy. What's the best thing I can tell her from experienced fighter pilots? She loves your show. Be humble, credible, approachable, and don't ever think you're better than anybody else because you went to the academy, because once you leave the academy, you're a second lieutenant like everybody else. But have fun while you're there. And what else, Gonky? Help each other out. Be a bro.
Yeah, I was going to say work together, because she's going to quickly find out, some people have strong
ambitions.
Points.
Yeah.
Some people are stronger, let's say instruments, right? Some people are stronger, just basically.
Well, this is just the academy. We haven't gotten
okay.
Far. Yeah, this is the Air Force Academy.
Cessnas. Is this Cessnas?
No, the academy, dude. College.
Right. Yeah. What do they fly there?
If anything, nothing.
Oh, well, in that case, just get through college.
Yeah, I mean, you mean like that? Don't they do the dose aviation, the little diamonds? The
I don't know.
katanas?
That's what I was asking. I mean,
Or they gliders. They also fly gliders.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I shouldn't have interrupted you. I apologize.
No, I mean, I thought in the Air Force I did not go to the academy.
Me neither.
I did OCS. Yeah, neither did Mover. But if she does any flying in the Air Force Academy, just pay attention to what your instructors are saying. Show up prepared, and do your best. That's all you can do. Do your best. Help your friends out, and then since she's at the academy, obviously number one thing, make sure you do well in school. Finish strong so you get what you want when you graduate, and then like Mover said, get that butter bar and get out there into the real military. But that's awesome.
Hell yeah. Alex Aviation and Adventures says, how long does the ground people check the plane over before the next flight? Could something been accidentally missed? It depends. If it's a quick turn, they don't do anything. They just service the lav. Well, Air India. Remember we talked about that story where they stuffed a whole bunch of stuff in that 777 and had to turn back because the toilets quit working?
Can you quick turn? Do they quick turn wide body? Like 787, like your big jets? I mean, the single aisle jets, 73, A320, they couldn't quick turn.
I don't see why not. I've gotten off and the crew was getting on.
Is it like a quick turn to me is like, 45 minute, 30 minute. Okay.
Yeah, domestically.
Okay. I didn't know, man.
I mean, you have to do fuel, catering, and then in the pre-flight, it's up to the pilots. So the pre-flight is where we check the oxygen, check the hydraulic levels. Then we call, hey, if there's a problem, because the jet also is talking to the company.
Right.
It is constantly data linking. So that before it even lands, they know, hey, we got to check this or whatever. Now we put it in the log and we tell them, hey, but they already kind of have an idea. Hey, the number one engine's running, it's got a little bit of a vibration or something. They already know. So it's sending off info. Hey, it needs more oil. It needs this. So, I mean, yeah.
Well, Alec, to answer your question, yes, something could have been missed, but typically the way it works is unless maintenance is out there. So sometimes when we come back, one of the maintenance guys will just be out there and he'll kind of walk around, but it's whoever's doing one of the pilots is going to do the walk around of the airplane, and it's some places, like some of the places we fly to, like usually, like if I'm doing the walk around, I'm the only one that does a visual inspection of the outside of the airplane. And absolutely I could miss something. And the thing is, we're all trained to look for specific things on a walk around. And if it's, 7-8 being kind of new, if it's something that's outside of that normal scan pattern, it could easily be missed. So to answer your question, yes, they could have missed something.
The 7-8 walk around is not super complicated. Like there's not, because I mean, think about it, dude. It's big airplane, can't see, there's just, I mean, it's telling the maintenance everything that's a problem.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Neo Zimu Wang says, greetings, Mover, aka Dogfight Man. Where's your buddy Kim Jong?
I don't know, man.
He's out sulking because nobody invites him to war.
No. Well, nobody invited him to our show. That's what he's like.
Asada Car says, drive, can't walk, man. I'm retired crop duster pilot. My dog just sleep all day. Watch YouTube time. That's it. And I do drink a lot of water for the kidneys. Good idea. Hey,
I starred that so we could add to the ASAT.
Lights on. Hey,
good idea. Hey,
I
you need to turn off the actual live stream, Skid.
Actual show, Skid. We hear as an echo.
You need to turn off the actual live stream, Skid. I don't sound like that, do I?
It's an endless loop now.
Recover.
Controls release. We have runners.
Just want to salute you guys. You guys are the best.
All right. Thanks, Skid.
Thanks, Skid.
All right. See ya. All right. Anyway, Max says, that was awesome. Do you guys think the Air India 787 from HK returned because of maintenance issues related to this? No. Airplanes return all the time.
Yeah.
For all kinds literally, it's unlikely.
Yeah. Maybe, but that's no direct correlation yet.
Yeah. Alex Aviation and Adventures. I'll get it right one time. I'm not a pilot and I don't what you said, but it was cool to listen to. So basically, we look things over, and if we see anything, we tell maintenance, but we're the ones responsible as the pilots between flights.
Yep.
Maintenance only does it when it's required, or if we've written something up that they need to go look at. So if there's something that they know, because the planes are just constantly flying, they don't just sit. They don't make money that way. Nacho, thank you for that.
Thanks, Nacho.
Brian says Fort Worth near McAllen, currently north of Corpus on 77.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Whitey
Still
Shark,
stomping
Michael
grounds.
says, get my shot glasses out for those Tomcats. Oh, God, here we go. Steve Billings, Air Godzilla says, I've seen several power takeoffs. Why do the pilots go upside down at altitude before rolling the right way up? Also, did you see the crash at Olath today playing on hangar roof? We're going to talk about that in probably 4 or 5 hours from now. Because it's more comfortable than pushing over.
Yeah.
And usually you can't push over with bomb stores, anything like that. So
yeah, you always want positive G, vice negative. So if
Yeah.
you're doing a high performance climb, that's the preferred technique.
You're like 45 to 60 degrees nose high, or 90 if you're that high speed. And then how do you get from here to here? Roll. You don't want to
roll and pull.
Islamic Steak says, Gonky, were there any A4s around when you joined? Probably, huh? TA4J?
No, but some of my instructors were A4 guys.
Beak was an A4 guy.
Was he?
Beak flew the TA4.
Really?
A lot of dudes in our squadron flew TA4s.
Really? Oh, in training. Yeah.
Yeah. Not like A4 guy. I'm talking the TA4.
Yeah. Yeah. We had one guy that he was a reservist. He was an A4 guy. He was cool. He's super cool.
Steinman says, long time viewer, first time in chats. Love the show, guy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, man.
Major scumbag. Random news. Russian frogfoot shoots down wingman during rocket run. Clips and movers DM. Classic Russian attack run failure.
We'll get there.
We'll get to that. All right. Breaking news.
Yeah.
Israel has decided they've had enough, and they took out 2 Tomcats, dude. You don't believe it. Doug, you have that clip.
Doug, play the evidence, sir.
I have this. Wait, there it is. But I also have this.
That's it.
No.
Dude,
Those things are parked like they're in storage.
I don't think it's real. I mean,
You're not real.
Listen, just because Gonky says I don't think it's real, they probably are real. But
can we stop watching it now?
I want it to not be real. Yeah, go to the next thing.
Hurts
I don't
my
want to talk about anyway.
Hurts my feel. The reason why I don't think it's real is like the airplanes don't move. I mean, you just hit it with a high explosive something.
They CBU it or something? What did they hit it with?
Nothing around it moves. The airplane doesn't shake or move. Nothing moves. So
it's a well-built, sturdy aircraft.
The Grumman product. This thing was
Grumman
designed.
product is not. It's probably still flyable with enough.
You seen Maverick
Bondo.
punish that thing?
Yeah, dude. With enough hope, dreams, and aspirations, we can make it fly again.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm not saying they didn't destroy some Tomcats, which makes me cry inside. But I don't think that is real footage. They may have blown up a couple of Tomcats, but I don't think that's the footage.
Well, it wouldn't be the first thing that was maybe a little bit of a wrong, because the other side of this coin is claiming they've shot down a whole bunch of fat Amy's.
I feel like we've talked about 2 countries before that have.
Hold on. So that is AI. The burner's still lit. Like it's in some grassy field. Yeah. The burner's still cooking. The wings aren't attached correctly, or the
tail's funky.
That's the whole thing. And the other one, go left. That's from Kirtland. We crashed that one ourselves. We don't need your help. And I love how Syrian girl is like flown by a woman.
Okay.
Like misogyny abounds.
Yeah.
Misogyny sexism, I guess.
Yeah. I would just think that in addition to, these, I don't know, these questionable photos, they're in Iran and Israel are in they're in an actual real war. So, you don't want to let out too much stuff, right? I mean, just dude, just don't talk. We'll fight the war, and that at the end when we win, right? Yeah, that what is that?
That is either these are ants,
That is the largest,
or that's the largest Fat
that's the-
Amy.
that's
That's Fat Amy triple XL. Look at that thing.
Why is the tail past the engine? Like, I mean, don't go into burn. You're gonna burn the horizontal stab off.
That's the least of the problems, dude. These people are giants. Look how much bigger they are than this bus.
How many
That's a
people-
bus. That's a fire truck. These people are. This is the land of. This is, dude. This would make a good novel.
That's the Goliath F-35 right there.
That is the F-35 super, dude. That's the one Trump was talking about.
Minus,
They shot
yeah.
down.
They shot
the
down
one-
the super lightning.
Fat Amy.
Dude. But again, dude,
Ah.
all this stuff, like you wouldn't be releasing things as soon as it's. I don't know. Maybe I'm old fashioned.
If I shot down a 400-foot long Fat Amy, I would release that video. Probably like, dude, we would be live streaming that, dude, because that's Godzilla.
Yeah.
This
That
is
Godzilla.
like I'm selling the movie rights to this thing.
Hey, news! If you build a 500-foot long F-35, it will not be stealth. All right, it's just
You don't need it to be stealth anymore.
yeah. I
All right, so let's get serious for a second. What do you have, Doug? What's next? We have more.
No,
Or
that's
we
the
way out of
SU-25.
stuff. Okay, we'll get to that too. So this conflict happened, and to me, we're talking about quote unquote expert analysis. Israel has demonstrated one of two things, or both. The Iranian air defense system is non-existent, or Western tech has reached the point that it doesn't matter, because they completely they were uncontested. They're doing long-range fighter ops, unrefueled, directly over Tehran. They had a drone flying directly over Tehran, taking stuff out, uncontested. Like we're talking, I mean, they're supposed to have, double-digit SAMs here, right? They got these from the Russians, and dude, it doesn't seem to matter. The Israelis are doing whatever they want in this airspace, dragging tankers over, Iraq and parts of Iran, I guess, too. And dude, this is the kind of stuff we will study if we don't end up involved. But it is amazing what they have managed to pull off. I mean, the level of precision. I mean, they took precise floors and rooms and put missiles through them, put bombs through them. I mean, we were impressed with what the Ukrainians did with the drones, but this is, from a military planning perspective, is the level of precision and competence that is honestly, it's awe-inspiring. I mean, just from a military perspective, you're like, wow. And now the Iranians have responded, but short of a couple missiles, landing in Tel Aviv, which is awful for, civilians getting killed, their response has not been anything like, I mean, they took out most of the negotiating team that in the upper echelon of the Iranian, military. Like, dude, could you imagine? Our joint chiefs gone. They just took them out from a meeting they called, from a guy that was sitting next to the Ayatollah, right? Was it the Ayatollah? Who was he sitting next to? There's a picture of him together with somebody.
I think that's right.
Yeah. But it turned out to be an Israeli asset this whole time. I mean, it's from an intelligence and a military perspective, this is the kind of stuff that military planners will study and learn from. And I'm sure, there's a lot of Western stuff involved in this, the tactics and stuff. I mean, Fat Amy showed that she's not the best looking girl, but it is an incredibly effective fighter. And the Viper too. Viper was doing good work too. The Lord's work. Gonky, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, man. It's a coordinated effort, right? So, I mean, you can have the best weapons and training, but if your intel is not good, it's not gonna it's going to go, it has a strong potential to go sideways. So, you know, having lived, you know, I lived in the Middle East from the late 70s until the mid 90s. And unfortunately, there's been, most of the time I was there was just a lot of fighting going on. And if you look back through just the short history of Israel being a country there, this is not the first time. I mean, they have a history of very precise, very strong get in there. Yeah, like the Israelis are really good at precisely going in, destroying like the objective, whatever that is, and then leaving. And they have and this is another example of that, man. I mean, you know, when I was there, I was young, but you know, when they flew the F-16s, when they first got the F-16s and they took out the reactor, you know, that was an incredible feat of airmanship. It was a lot of coordination and planning, and they had to have a lot of intel, but it's just, you know, this is the current generation doing missions just like that. And
wow.
You know, it's, I don't know, man. You know, you feel for the innocent, the civilians.
Yeah, that's a great point. The Iranian people are not their government. You know, that country used to be thriving.
Yeah.
I mean, we that's why they have Tomcats. They don't have Tomcats because they were douchebags. They have Tomcats because they used to be awesome.
They were allies. Yeah. My dad worked in Iran before the Shah fell. So, you know, and he told me, he said he enjoyed living there. Nothing against the Iranian people. And, you know, I met a couple Iranians when I was when we pulled into port there, when I was active duty Navy, and they're just normal people. You know, in fact, I think this was back when the Iranians took the British PT boat people hostage, and like he told me, he's like, oh, unfortunately, I think your country and my country will be at war soon. I mean, he's just normal people, and it's just like, it's got to be a better way, man.
The people are, I hope they're able to free themselves and actually have, you know, I think that's the only way you go to peace, is you have a free people.
Yeah, there's some really, you know, for anybody who's interested in Iran, there's some really good YouTube videos about what Iran was like in the 70s, and I've watched them, and it's
they seem like water skiing with the flag and everything. It's
very you know, very different than what you see today.
It's like Qatar, you know. I mean, it's like it looks like what some of those countries kind of look like today, where there's a lot of wealth. They have a lot of oil. I mean, they could be a incredibly wealthy people.
Oh yeah.
And not under whatever this is, that, you know, like they spend so much trying to kill and support these terrorist organizations and stuff. And you're just like, imagine if you tried to get along and didn't do that, didn't support Hamas, didn't support the Houthi rebels and you know, all that nonsense going on. I mean,
yeah, it's sad. It's sad to see, man. I mean, those are the innocent people, you know, from a military standpoint, being a, you know, military fighter pilot, like you hit the nail on the head. It was from the Israelis. That's
total air dominance.
It's pretty eye-watering.
Yeah. Total air dominance, air superiority. I don't know unconfirmed reports whether they had air-to-air kills. I'm assuming they must have, if they, you know, the Iranians scrambled anybody.
Yeah.
But I mean, they did launch drones, and there's been obviously shoot downs of drones. There's a video of an Apache taking out a drone and stuff like that. But a lot of learning to be done from this that I think will be extrapolated in the not too distant future.
And I'm not saying the Iranians are not capable of downing an F-35, but I'm almost certain if they did, like for sure, that thing would be paraded. You know, we'd have real pictures, not the freaking airliner version of Fat Amy.
787-9 F-35.
Correct. Exactly.
F-35 ER.
Right, dude. That's right. So I'm pretty certain about that. But since we don't have that, it leads me to believe that was probably not true. But again,
remember too that they took the F-35 and they've modified it.
Oh yeah.
So it's not just, the F-35. F-35 is great. This could be, the first real combat test of it, which is, it's doing a good job. I don't think anybody with any sense thinks that it's a terrible aircraft. It just doesn't look great. It doesn't look great. And it's not good at BFM, but that doesn't matter because none of that matters anymore.
Well, as a strike, dude, as a strike airplane, it's proven to be like,
even air to air and seed, it does well too. Just not, it doesn't look great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Superficial, man. I'm with you.
Yeah. BFM. It's a bowling sport. Who cares?
I do.
That's right. But who's the world's greatest bowler? Do you know? Do you care?
In my mind, it's me. Right?
John says, since we are going to start topic 2 at the hour-and-a-half mark, I say you make this a marathon episode. We are trying.
Yeah. Buckle up, kids. Get comfy.
Tomcat said, finally. Oh, it's like the old put me out of my misery dog from, what was that? It wasn't South Park. Was it Family Guy?
Yeah. I've said, dude, I tell you what. So when they took the,
hold on, we got to chat, but go ahead.
When they took the British, they were sailors hostage. We had a guy in my squadron who flew Tomcats, and we were like, his call sign was Skull. It's like, Skull, if you got one of those Tomcats under the hammer, you're gonna be able to pull the trigger. Like, I'm questioning because he flew, and he's just like, we're not flying him. No one's flying him. If I was the guy, if that picture is true, if Tomcats have been destroyed by 35s, it's like it would have been cool to be the person, the pilot to push the pickle.
I hope they yell Tomcats.
Right. Tomcat.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1. Tomcats.
That's right.
One away.
Meow.
Yeah. All right. Jessica Brown says, ATL scientist. Glad I found this via L Cochran 78. Well, thank you.
Thank you
for joining us.
Yes.
We're glad you found us too. Tom says, that's not fat Amy. That's thick Amy. No, dude, that's beyond thick.
You think they would have doctored it up more, but
how could they have doctored it up anymore?
Shrink it.
What is the infidel scale for
right.
F-35? That's fine. It's fine. Just go with it. They'll believe it. The Islamic Steak says, we need that DCS chick to teach us how to start an F-14 so I can relocate one from Iran. Where was Thomas Cruise when we needed him? That'll be the plot twist, dude. What if that is? What if? Hear me out.
Oh boy.
Thomas Cruise and Jared Isaacman are currently on a mission right now, flying one back.
That'd be awesome. Well, they're both pilots, so maybe flying 2 back.
So was Goose's son.
That's true. Somebody needs to put the ladder up, dude.
Somebody's got to put the ladder up.
That's right.
Somebody's got to start the start cart.
That's right.
Turn it off and unplug everything, and then put the ladder up with no training whatsoever.
That's true.
Pull all the pins
and arm the missiles.
Arm the missiles. Hawkeye says the Aardvark and Fat Amy had a child, and there's the picture to prove it. No, dude. That is the Guppy and Fat Amy.
Yeah, that must have been a rough night for the old Lightning.
Yeah, that's no. Justin Newcomb says, I was in the Army B-Day parade this weekend and have been really demoralized by the hate mob. We have air shows every weekend, but God forbid one parade. Well, that's bullshit.
What happened?
Listen, don't read the comments. Oh, it was the Army's birthday this weekend.
Okay. Yeah.
That's not one of our 55 topics tonight. Sorry. They marched. They did a parade. Trump said some words, saluted them. Everybody had a good time. That's it. That's the story.
Okay.
And people are like, oh, I don't like it because it's like, listen, shut up.
Yeah. It's like, shut it.
Stop
you have a party on your birthday.
Shut up. Yeah. Just shut your mouth. That's it.
Sorry, Justin.
You know what?
Don't let it bother you, man.
Yeah. I'm sure you did great, Justin, and we're proud of you.
Yeah.
And you should be proud of you too. Doesn't matter what they think.
Yeah, dude.
It's what you think and your bros.
Yeah.
Rhino IA says, nice of the Israelis to get one last Fat Amy beta test done for us. Also, the Mossad story is coming out. Don't F with Mossad.
Okay.
If they make mean comments, I just accept it.
Everybody knows that. It's just like, don't drink the water in Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Oh, I love
American Idiocracy says, regarding the rat, she sits on the FO lap and gets only one restroom break per flight.
Okay.
Well, $10 is $10, so whatever.
Yeah.
Johnny says $4.99.
Thanks, Johnny.
Nice picture, Johnny.
That is, yeah.
No disassemble. Andrew Law Art says they call it fat. Photoshop bigger.
They must actually watch this show.
Breaking news: Su-25 shoots down
Oh man,
flight lead.
yeah.
All right, let's
Doug,
roll the
you gotta
tape.
roll it, man.
Is there sound?
Pew! There you go. See? Oh, dear.
Play that again. Or don't play it again. You know, whatever you feel like, Doug. Just over to you. I don't know how he did it.
Well,
he was off to the left and he broke left. I mean,
rockets, right? So maybe maybe a fin didn't pop on one and it went shoo, right? Gotcha.
Yeah, that had some hate in his heart.
Boy, that's a tough debrief. Ooh.
That will be a longer debrief than usual.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon in the U.S. to shoot down your flight lead.
It has happened in the past.
It has happened in the past, usually with training rounds simulated, but it has happened. I mean, I know a guy, you could dogfight anywhere, right? Hot gun, no gun, right. Bullets in the gun or whatever. And so they would jump. You'd get jumped. And it's like, fights on wherever you're at. You should always be ready. And the guy just happened to be coming off of an air-to-ground sortie. And when he rolled in behind him, his master arm was still hot. And he squeezed the trigger and sprayed some bullets. Missed, but sprayed some bullets. Got a call sign out of it. In Soviet Russia, do you get a call sign out of this or the gulag?
Yeah. I don't know, man. You bring up a good point. How did this happen? Because since we've had accidents, much like, just like you described, like there's all kinds of, even in actual combat, right? So like you say, dogfighting's dead, but in the Navy, they would always teach us, as far as depending on the weapon you have selected, where your wingman is.
Oh no,
matters.
No, we're gonna go to jail, Gonky. Don't do that.
But I'm just saying, like, but I'm saying is you gotta know where your wingman is, and
flight lead.
Well, flight lead, and with unguided rockets, I think anywhere 4 to the 3.9, you roll the dice, because like I said, of a fin, I've heard enough stories of the fin, not deploying and the rocket going crazy.
That is kind of a golden BB. I mean,
yeah, of course.
If it wasn't in his field of fire, the question though I have is, do you think after he shot him down, did he provide the rest cap and orbit and establish radio contact, or did he just go home?
He probably initially did, and then as soon as he established contact, his buddy was like, I don't want to talk to you.
It's like, second of all, did the flight lead even know at the point? Like, because dude, he's in front. He's like, just rockets on these guys. Let's bug out. Why am I? Oh God, I'm dying. Jump, punch.
They were low out. They were pretty low and going pretty fast. And like you said, I think in his mind, something catastrophic just happened.
The jet came apart as he turned.
Disassemble.
He may have gotten away with it. He'd be like, "Oh, comrade, I mean, your jet just broke apart. I don't know."
Yeah, until the Twitter, until the X feed comes out, he's like, "Wait a minute."
I tell you, the airplane is just not maintained very well. You turn and it explode.
He might be watching now. He's like, wait a minute, I got shot down. What the
Yeah.
hell?
Yeah. What's this dummy that got shot down? That's me. I was there.
Yeah, I think it's hey, I think it's like you said, man. I think it's a golden BB. Because he wasn't lined up directly behind him. And I guess you get what I've wanted to shoot rockets. I never got to shoot them, so I can't.
Rockets a lot at the homestead.
Yeah, so I mean, you would know more than me as far as like just the flight pattern, the ballistic. I don't. Did you guys even brief anything as far as like?
Yeah, we don't do anything forward firing with behind 3.9. I mean, you're right.
Okay.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, stinks. He probably got a new call sign. Maybe they both did, and now they are, less one Su-25. Hopefully nobody got hurt. I mean, hopefully nobody died.
They didn't, but that's combat. Like they're shooting rockets at something that they want to die. So they just shot rockets at something, and now he's over the thing he just shot the rockets at.
That's not good. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, right. I don't know, man. But yeah, that's at a minimum. That's, I mean, it's, nobody got killed or hurt. It's just embarrassing.
It would not. I may have done this to Doug a few times in our nerd ops.
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose.
My God.
Not on purpose. But I'm just saying these things happen. Okay, to the best of us. John says, never kiss your wingman's sister or wife. This looks more like wife.
Oh,
this looks less like sister and more like wife.
Definitely wife.
If we're gonna speculate on such things, which we don't at this channel.
No.
We'd have to go put on our Russian flight suits and come up with a reason.
No, dude. No speculation or facts.
This ain't the news or nothing.
Definitely.
Tom says $20 says one of those Su-25 pilots was messing with the other's wife. There you go. The golden BB ski, says Joe Airwolf.
Yeah.
Laura says, is Mover's room always so dark? No, I'm changing the lighting. This is not better.
We discussed this prior to the show. I liked it more. It's
I asked Gonky.
Which my opinion was I liked it. So
yeah.
I don't know. Now that Laura said something about, for sure, next show, Mover's gonna have the back all lit up.
All the spotlights.
All the spotlights.
Well, there is one downside. Luna walked in and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do the Luna cam. And you can't do the Luna cam because it's too dark. I need a second light for Luna if I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
Well, so the behind me's dark, but me is not.
No.
That's the point.
You're brighter than I am.
That's racist, Gonky.
I said brighter, bro.
Racist. You did a racism, Gonky. Kevin Morgan says, does the Russian pilot get an air-to-air kill credit? Nah, when it's friendly, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't get that.
Bad day.
You don't get that. All right. Topic number 36. Gonky, you got this one.
Bring it up, man. It's happened in Boston, right? On Thursday. So no injuries after JetBlue plane rolls onto the grass at Boston. Zoom in, Doug. I can't read it.
You can't read that? I got it. It's an A220 from JetBlue flight 312 was assessed as passengers were deplaned. It veered off the runway onto the grass while landing on Thursday at Boston Logan International. It's brand new, been manufactured in 2024. There were no injuries. Safety is JetBlue's top priority. Conduct a full investigation of the incident and will work closely with the relevant authorities. Their union is aware of the event, as they would be. They had a ground stop, but everybody is good, and that is it. That's all we have. Gonky?
Yeah.
A220.
A220, newer airplane. They built them right over here in Mobile, Airbus. Yeah, sometimes airplanes go off into the grass. Thankfully, nobody got hurt. It doesn't really look like anything got tore up. I don't know. The article is pretty slim on the facts, but I don't know, Mover. Usually we see airplanes kind of off the prepared surface, like if it's wet or in the winter. It didn't really look like that there, but I've been to Boston several times. I know I've landed on pretty much all the runways there, and sometimes they have high speed. Some of them have high speed exits off the taxiway. So I don't know. Maybe they take a look. No, I'm not speculating, but one of the ways you can find yourself off the prepared surface is if you try to make one of those taxiways. Sometimes when you're on the landing roll, and I hate it when they do this, they'll ask you, "Hey, are you guys gonna make? You guys are gonna make Foxtrot?" And you're like, "Yeah, we can do it, man." And then
yeah, and it obviously could be mechanical. You could have a brake, malfunction or something. One brake grabs, the other one doesn't, and next thing you know,
as hey, nobody got hurt.
Yeah,
Thankfully,
you can have that. I mean, it's happened a lot. We've had 7.3s and stuff. The 7.3 that I remember was they, start powering up before the turn, and one engine catches and the other one doesn't. So it's asymmetric thrust around. But if it's coming off of a landing, brakes or just misjudging or whatever. But I think no harm, no foul. To be honest with you, I mean,
yeah. Like I said, the article didn't have a whole lot of facts other than airplane in the grass.
Inconvenient, but everyone will be okay.
Yeah.
We just, it'd be nice to just let's chill out for a little while.
Well, the thing is that was Thursday, right? I mean, that came right on the heels of the Air India thing. So, and we were talking offline earlier. You just mentioned that there's been aviation is still the safest way to travel, but there has the perception is, and even I feel it too. It's like, man, there's been some really strange stuff happen in the last year, 6-9 months.
Two catastrophic dual engine maybe issues resulting in fatal mishaps in 7 months.
Yeah,
one
bad ones,
midair.
Right.
In between that.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the number of things we've talked about on this show, it's like, wow.
Yeah, literally, by Friday, I was like, man, I don't know if we're gonna make it to Monday, at the rate that things are happening. And you don't want to, we don't want to see that.
No.
But yeah, it does. The perception is out there that, man, there's a lot of strange aviation stuff going on, which I don't know.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Don't know that this is going to last. Aviationist is reporting that DoD is cutting deliveries by up to 50% in latest budget documents. We can only afford the Air Force that we need, but not the one that we want. I don't know. They were going to get 48 originally. Now they're going to get 24, and F-35C will go from 17 to 12, and the Marines will get a reduction of 2. Which they're saying, though, it's not clear if this means fewer 35Bs and Cs. Remember we talked about that? They were looking at getting the C, which further enhances the idea that the B is a colossal waste.
Yep.
But this is interesting to me only because it seems like they're now funneling this, everything into the F-47. And we were going to talk about the 6th gen update. They're talking about maybe they just don't do it and put all their eggs in the F-47. Do you think this is part of that and part of the whole, we're going to upgrade it, so we're funneling money, and maybe we don't want this version, but we're going to get the later versions? Or do you think it's just, dude, we're broke and we're just trying to find money?
I think it's a combination of both, to be honest. I mean, the reality is, like you mentioned, we can't afford the military we want, right? So, but in any budgeting, you're going to look at, okay, what's going to give me the most for my money, basically. And I think that's what they're trying to do. And who's to say that, that 50% cut doesn't go away, right? I mean, it's not like it's totally set in stone.
Well, I mean, it's the budget. So then, unless it happens under budget reconciliation, probably.
Yeah. And I mean, and I don't know, maybe exactly. And as far as, funneling money into the F-47, and, I guess one of the things we're going to touch on is the Navy 6th gen effort, right? So, and I think that stems to basically a little bit like we talked about last week is, dude, the future fighter, like our 6th gen fighter, like it's got to be good, and we need it sooner than later. If you look at the rate that China is developing new fighters, and we're not going to talk about it, but did you see the photo of the flying wing they have?
Oh yeah. The H whatever.
Yeah.
That they think might be either manned or unmanned bomber.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we've mentioned it before, the industrial capacity that China has is, in my mind, is really revealing itself with aviation, right? Because they're just pumping out new, from our perspective, here, in the States, they're just pumping out new stuff left and right. And, we've, we haven't, and I'm not to say that it needs to be a 1-for-1 race, but I think there is a sense of urgency on, hey, we cannot F-47 or whatever it ends up being, our next air superiority fighter, our next fighter can't be another F-35 as far as how long it took to get it to where it is. And I think that is a function of both money and I think smart programs, right? Good engineering, stuff like that.
So for me, it's concerning because you're right. As long as it took is the problem. And the real problem is we needed the double amount of aircraft, the 48 aircraft. We needed that 10 years ago. We needed these numbers 10 years ago because now we're seeing, there's an article, we're probably not going to get to it. The author, one of the think tanks, he asked the question, could we put up 200 jets to do what Israel did? And it's like, maybe, we need,
which is wild when you think about it.
We need numbers. Yeah. The small country of Israel. But we need numbers as well as tech. You can't have one without the other because once the numbers are gone, the tech doesn't matter. If they take you out in the first couple hours of the war, what happens next?
Right.
So it's a national security issue. The problem I have with it is, as we found with the F-22 when they cut the order to 187, because this is not a permanent cut. You're just saying, hey, instead of 48, we'll push it, we'll kick the can.
Right.
You start kicking the can, you never catch up. And if you do that, what ends up happening is we become another net deficit, just like the F-22, where it becomes more expensive because cost per unit goes up, and we don't get our planning. I have a good friend that is in, higher headquarters and planning and stuff like that. And he is always talking about how he's at the tail end of the whip because he will plan out. They don't plan stuff out like, hey, next week we're going to, allocate this money. It's like years in advance. And then they go, okay, here's our 5-year plan. They come up with these long plans. They're like, we're going to have this many aircraft here, this many aircraft here. We're going to need, for every aircraft, we need X amount of pilots, X amount of maintainers. We're going to build these squadrons. You know what happens every time they do this? It destroys the plan. It's a constant, like, how many programs have we talked about, or how many people do you know that have been affected by, hey, this jet is going to be at this base next year. And then guess what? Well, instead of 5 jets, they got 2 or 1 jet. They're trying to make this happen. So I think that I like the idea of, hey, what you're talking about, if, hey, we need to start focusing on the next gen. I just don't know that you pull it out of this, our numbers, or that, or you buy, the F-16 Block 69 and the EX and the, Block 3. You got to have it somewhere because the fewer aircraft we have makes us less lethal.
We've talked about that in the past, and I think it's valid, man. You don't need, every fighter doesn't need to be a 5th gen. If you're struggling with budget stuff, dude, like you're saying, man, the F-16 is a perfectly capable airplane.
But at this point, the cost amortization has already been real. Like, it's already been realized through, your your program cost, right? We've already spent the money. So at this point, in a lot of cases, that F-16 or EX is not significantly or at all cheaper than how much we are now paying for new F-35s. So why not just take the 5th gen? You know, if you had the choice, I mean, yeah, I'd want the better looking aircraft, but if I have the choice, because I can take that Gen 5.5, that Gen 6 tech and put it in these F-35s now, you know, as long as that upgrade capability exists.
Yeah, I guess that goes back to just flawed thinking probably 25, 30 years ago, right? You know, everything needs to be
Yeah.
The whole idea. I mean, dude, the Hornet and the F-16 were kind of the babies of that idea, right? One jet doing everything. It's like, well, maybe.
I was good at everything. I don't know about you.
No, I wasn't. I'll admit that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on from topic number 15. John says wingman's new call sign giver, flight lead's new call sign receiver. Sistin CS1064 says, what's up, guys? Any shareable thoughts on the huge group of Stratotankers that went east yesterday? Thanks for the show.
Formation.
OPSEC starts with you.
Yeah.
Loose lips sink ships. Jail, it's not for me.
Jail, it's not for me, dude. I like freedom.
Yeah. I love like America.
I love my America.
Don't want to piss off America or Mossad at any point during this show. Baghdaddy Mike says, wow, 1,700 viewers. You guys are kind of a big deal. Congrats on your continued growth. Dude, we're doing this by ourselves. No Wombat this time. It's probably because you put it in the title.
Probably. But hey, full disclosure, when I made that thumbnail, he was going to be able to make it. And we are sad that he's not here. So
by the time we get to about the 14th topic, he should be able to join.
I don't know, man.
I'm just saying.
He's busy.
Kate says, Ryder's mind is sketching a novel plot line around this incident, which pilot took out his wingman love triangle goes down in flame. It's probably been done. All right. What do we got next?
With an unguided rocket?
I love it. That is, well, you know, it's hard to... Unguided rocket actually is probably the smarter way to do it, because then you'd be like, comrade,
yeah, mistake.
Yeah.
One was guided.
Yeah,
Only one was guided.
Yeah. So the pick was that the Strike Eagle has gotten that we never talked about.
We'll get there at some point.
Douglas has reported that trust issues. RAF F-35B refuses to leave jet at Indian Airport. The newspaper report says the RAF pilot of the F-35B refused to move away from his aircraft after landing. Dude, say that word.
No.
Okay.
So, landing in India. Captain
Mike completed customs but declined to enter the terminal, requesting a chair instead. He sat beside the jet for a long time before finally agreeing to proceed with formalities. Make that picture as large, sir.
Enhance.
What do you think about that, Gonky?
I don't see anything irregular about that, because, you know, I'm not privy to the RAF's protocols with the F-35, but I know, like, when the Super Hornet or the ISA first came out, like, there was certain things that, you know, like if you're not at your home base, like, you are responsible for the safety and security of that airplane. So he's clearly not at his home base. I don't know why. That doesn't say why he's there. You know, he's probably just doing his job.
He diverted.
You know? Okay, then yeah.
Diverted.
If you divert into there's nothing wrong with staying with your airplane, because
I think it was a men fuel divert.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with it, man. It's you know, in certain situations, you know, we would do the same thing, back in the Navy. I mean, how about you with the F-16?
1000%. I saw this and I'm like,
so
standard.
Yeah, it's like,
because you had to wait. I mean, you because the Air Force is worse than the Navy, and I'm sure the RAF is closer to us than it is to you. That jet is a highly classified aircraft. It requires security, and that security can happen one of two ways. Either a team shows up, which they're probably en route, or it's you. And because you don't want people crawling around it, you don't want people taking pictures of it, you don't want people sticking stuff in the intake and sabotaging it and all that stuff until you can get dudes with rifles out there to protect the thing, because that's the level we strive for. We do that. Now, cross countries were always different to some degree. Like in the Air Force, dude, for the most part, we went to military bases where that's built in. Very rarely we'd have to get permission. And then when we got permission to go to like a civilian field, you had to call the FBO and say, hey, you guys have 24-hour security. All right, they're going to have to put up ropes and somebody's going to have to park next to this fighter. Like that was a thing. Hornet was different, but it was A+. I mean, yeah, the secrets were already out by then. But for something like this, dude, a brand new 5th gen fighter, this is standard. I mean, I'm surprised he ever left. I'm surprised there's no second article where, the RAF support team showed up with his maintenance and security and secured the aircraft.
Well, a lot of times too, isn't it like section integrity, right? Wouldn't like you never send somebody solo in there, right? So both you would land, right?
Yes, but that's not what happened. So he may have been by himself or whatever. But that you bring up a good point. I mean, we divert together.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we used to brief as well.
Yeah. So
because it's safer. I mean, what if you gotta go to the bathroom?
Yeah. Hey, Doug, we're going to skip to the Pakistani one because the next two, one we already covered, and the other one we're going to wait for Wombat.
Okay, let me see if I can find that. Is that?
I can't see that. Sure.
Yeah, but
so
that's all.
we've talked about this on the show. I've talked about this on my channel, pissed both sides off, which I love doing. Did India lose Rafales? If you remember, the Pakistani Air Force put a nice presentation together that had 6 verified, they said, kills. And then we went to the Indian side, and the Indian side basically said the losses are part of combat. And then a pointed interview, they said, yes, we lost jets, but didn't say which ones or what kind or whatever. After that we call it a war or skirmish. After that battles that occurred, the salt stock dropped because orders and stuff like that. Well, on the 15th of June, Eric Trappier, the CEO of Dassault Aviation, said that what the Pakistanis are saying is inaccurate. This is from the Hindustan Times, so consider the source. But it says that is the claim that India lost Rafale jets during the last month's conflict, saying Islamabad said is inaccurate. And that's it. Just said it's inaccurate. They haven't communicated, so we don't know exactly what happened. What we already know is that the Pakistanis are saying is inaccurate. So you say, we don't know, but that ain't it. When you operate combat aircraft, you're carrying out a mission. The mission's success is not having 0 losses. It's having achieved its objective. But he's basically kind of saying what we kind of said, is that there's nothing really verified in this, but India is not talking either. The only thing we have is the claim that they shot down 6 aircraft in Operation Sindoor on the, was it 7th and 10th?
Mm-hmm.
So we're in a combat. There you go. Where it says the air marshal said losses are part of combat. Scroll down, Doug. Yeah. The question you must ask is whether we achieved our objective. So he kind of deflected. And I don't know that this is really a debunking either. Because if India is not really talking to him, but yeah. He did confirm that Indian jets were downed, which I think there was a Su-30 crew that was pretty obvious, but he didn't specify how many or whether Rafales were a part of them. Trappier firmly stood by the fighter jet's credentials because he has to sell it. He thinks it's the best in the world, better than the F-35. Okay. He thinks they're the best, which I would hope the CEO of Dassault thinks it's the best. Gonky, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, he's probably doing, whether the claim is true or not, the words were spoken, right? So he's doing a little bit of damage control, being the CEO, as he should. And, we don't know, right? It's finger pointing at this point. And, for him to come out and say something like that, I would expect it. He is right in the sense that the objective is the mission, not necessarily no losses. Generally speaking, sometimes commander's intent is no blue losses, but You know, the Rafale is a good airplane. I've flown with them a little bit, the Navy, the Navy variant, and it's, you know, what I saw is very much like an F-18, to be honest. I don't know if, you know, the claims is better than F-35 and everything. I don't know. Maybe these newer generation ones are, but I would expect the CEO of a major defense company like that to respond as he did. I mean, is that kind of what you're thinking?
I think it gets too much into the team sports at this point, right? Because everybody's like got a side and we got to save face and all this. India obviously lost aircraft, and they're in this, and especially this region. I mean, it's obviously a little bit of cultural where we save face and we don't want to admit losses or admit what happened because, you know, the aircraft we buy is the best aircraft and there's no other option. So we don't want to admit anything either. Pakistanis are obviously, you know, want to push this narrative, and to some degree, they have produced more truth than the other side because they came out and said, on this date, at this location, at these places, we took down this aircraft, this aircraft, this aircraft. And the Indians did not come back and debunk it. Not that they need to, but when they are asked about it, they get dodgy, which always, when you get dodgy, you're like, yeah, okay. Cause they're like, well, we didn't lose that number's wrong. It's like, well, okay,
Right.
well, how many did you lose? Well, a few, some, more than one, two. So, you know, three sides to every story, you know, Pakistani side, the Indian side, and the truth. I think the CEO of the Dassault aircraft company has an obligation to his shareholders. And when asked about, you know, hey, do you have the greatest jet in the world? Yeah, we of course we have the best jet. Because what else are you going to say? Nah, man, we got
Sold you a lemon.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that thing sucks.
It does.
It's not even as good as the Viper, which is true. So yeah, he's going to say that. He didn't really deny it, other than he said it's inaccurate, which could mean, yeah, okay, yeah, instead of 2, it was 1 or
3.
whatever.
It's 3.
To me, like overall, it's irrelevant. Like
Yeah.
none of this matters. If they had 6 air-to-air kills or 20, I think what ends up mattering is, were the strategic and ground commanders and what objectives met? Did they do? Because we are, even though we want to think we're the show, we are support assets. We are trying to enact the ground commander's intent to achieve strategic objectives. And that's all that matters. Yeah, we don't want to have losses. It's great if we don't have losses. But if at the end of the day, you know, India took out Pakistan's ability to do X, Y, and Z, well, I think they can call that a success. And if Pakistan defended against it or prevented or whatever, then they can call that a success. The fact that they're not still fighting, to me, is the ultimate win. And I hope that continues and that we don't devolve into a larger conflict. Like I hope the bickering back and forth about how many you shot down is as bad as it gets.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. I agree. Yeah, mission success is what it's about. I mean, dude, the fighter planes are just a tool, right? It's just one piece of the puzzle. And I get it, like wreckage, at least the best of my ability or knowledge, you know, wreckage from both sides of, you know, fell into their own country. If there's a Rafale down in Pakistan, I'm almost certain we would see pictures of it.
I don't think they claimed a single kill that landed in their own country. I think it was all,
yeah.
I mean, which granted, like, remember last week, was it last week we were talking about, they said they shot down the Saab 340 or whatever. And you're like,
yeah, like way inland.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
You sure about that? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's hard to sift through what is truth and not truth. You know, the real truth is probably somewhere in the middle, and he really didn't shed any light on what happened.
No, it's probably like one Rafale, a Su-30, you know, a drone, something else. And you're like, okay, yeah, okay. They said 6, there was only 4, one Rafale. Okay, sure.
Right.
I don't think it changes anything. I think the amount of data that was gathered from that conflict is still valid. And I think that diplomacy is still the answer.
And let's hope that's what happens.
Joe says, I hate to add to the topic marathon. The topic was the Air Force going forward with the NGAD while the Navy drops out. Gonky brought the F4 into the topic. Well, the Phantom Star is a Navy jet, so why not build the FA-XX first?
Yeah, I don't honestly, man. I don't think it matters which they build first. And I would argue that if you're going to build an air superiority fighter, probably the Air Force is going to field the most of them, right? I mean, it is the Air Force. Not to downplay naval aviation, and the Navy's ability to establish air dominance is important as well, because they can park carriers in places where there are no airfields for the Air Force to launch out of. But yeah, you would think building a Navy airplane it'd be easier to make it an Air Force airplane, vice the other way around, because Navy jets need heavier landing gear and those things, and those are pretty big engineering things to overcome when you start trying to change an airplane that's already been designed. I mean, the F-35, right? The Navy variant has different landing gear, different wing. If they're parked next to one another, you can see it. So I don't know. I don't know why they're doing it the way they're doing, other than the fact that probably the Air Force, wants a lot of them, and it's the Air Force. We're broke. And we're broke. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. No money. No monies.
The whole ass answer right there is we don't
monies.
Have any money.
No monies.
Just looking at this.
Yeah.
All of them, Doug. Just keep going. We'll tell you when to stop.
Hey, I got nothing to do tomorrow.
You got this, Doug? Still Hindustani
Hang on.
time.
Okay. I wasn't ready for it to actually happen. Hang on.
That's what she said. That's what she said.
There you go.
All right. Make it large, sir.
Dude, is it the helicopter? Oh, this is wild. This is R66, right?
Yeah.
Abort.
Yeah, look at this thing, man. It just dance. Oh, did you break the skid?
Oh yeah.
Look at that.
Get out.
We're on the edge of a building. Now's the time.
Dude, the rotor blade.
Yeah, it's still going.
They both got out the same side.
We've made several landings. Like
now the other one's going to get out. A pilot.
There's just two in there, right?
Somebody opened the pilot's on the right side.
I don't know, but you look at that thing.
Yeah, look, there's his leg.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. There's. He's like, I gotta shut this thing down.
It seems like it's going the wrong way. It's running.
Dude, if he shuts it down, maybe it'll tip right over.
Now you just push it over for insurance.
Oh yeah.
Go to the beginning, Doug.
He got the camera rolling, man.
Well, he didn't know that.
That's true. So what happened? What mover is a helicopter pilot? What happened?
I'm not a professional here, but this looks like go back, Doug. Right there. Dude, this is obviously the roof of some building, and I don't know how high it is, but when you start getting into high pinnacle, like platform stuff like that, you start to risk either vortex ring state or settling with power, which basically, because you can see the blades are kind of turned up too, based on the frame rate. So I mean, it looks like he's like pulling the guts out of it, and it just runs out of steam, and that's what causes the loss of tail rotor effectiveness. Then he hits something, and then because you can see it start to yaw.
Oh yeah,
that's dude. We're just pulling the guts out of it. He may have done like hey, I don't want to hit this thing, so it may have been intentional, but it just looks to me like we just ran out of juice. Maybe don't know what the weight was,
right?
But you're talking.
Look at this.
Don't know what the elevation was here, but this looks like a vortex ring state or settle with. Probably more settle with power, where you're just not getting, you're pulling the guts out of it, and that's it. But
dude, that is, can you imagine? All right, now get out.
Yeah.
He certainly flew it all the way into the crash.
He kept
yes,
flying it.
he
I
kept
mean,
Dude, it
and then got
crashed
his
there.
passengers out. So, but yeah. All right. Last
is
helo
wild.
thing.
We got another helo thing. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
dude.
right. That's right. The hangar.
Helo versus hangar door. This was one of Diesel Dave's or Heavy D Sparks, one of the guys from that show. It's his
Is it?
helicopter.
Is he flying it?
I know. I don't know that he was flying it, but I think this is his helicopter because this is in Utah.
Oh boy.
Doors open, picks up, wobbles. I hate landing on these things, by the way. Taking off and landing off the dollies.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
All right. And that's it, dude. We're going to stop here.
Ouch.
Call it a night. I think we've done enough. We'll do the mental health minute another night. I think we've hit enough topics. What do you think, Gonky? Good
Yeah,
show?
dude. My eyes are bleeding.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for
Sorry.
watching. Hopefully next
Yeah.
week is
Thanks for joining us. Sorry we
not
didn't,
as
didn't have Wombat with us too.
Night, folks.
Next week is another time. We'll talk to you later.
Good night.
See ya.